Hey everyone, today I'm going to be working on a Savage model 1899. My customer that brought it in wants me to pretty much check it to make sure that's going to function correctly. Going to take a look at everything inside of it, make sure it's all functioning properly, give it a good scrub down, and get it back to our customer. Alright, so here she is. It is a super pretty lever action firearm. This particular model was built in 1917 and shoots a 250 Savage, which is that guy right there. So the first thing we're going to do with this is get back in here, remove the entire butt stock in order to get inside the innards all up in this area right here. And you'll see here in a second, you got to remove the butt plate, and there's a screw up inside of here that you need to get. You want to be careful with these guys. Like I said, this was built in 1917. Who knows what kind of wear and tear this wood's been through. You don't want to mess up any of the threading or split the wood by any means. It's coming loose, slowly but surely. There you go. These things come in handy, by the way. Alright, so you don't want to beat the crap out of this thing. It is going to be a little stiff and kind of hard to get off. They do fit really tight. Like I said, the main concern is not damaging the wood that's on here. There we go. So here are the guts inside of your 250 Savage. So essentially what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be removing the lever, the trigger, the sear that's up in here, the bolt. The bolt's what I'm mostly concerned about. All the mechanics of this guy seem to be working fairly decent. But I want to make sure the firing pin and everything in there is good too. So I am going to go ahead and remove this sight right here. Kind of get it out of the way and make it a little bit easier to get down into this area. You want to make sure the screwdrivers that you're using fit wall to wall. Ooh, those guys don't want to move. Here's the thing too, if they're not moving, don't try and force it. You don't want to booger these guys up. In situations like this, I'm going to introduce you to one of my best friends. An oil can. Just kidding, I have Kroll in there. Kroll is by far one of the best penetrating oils I have ever used. Let me clean that up a little bit right there. Let that soak in there for a little bit and come back to her. If you're having a really hard time, heat is also a really good friend.
A few moments later.
Alright, so I've been letting this sit for about 20 minutes. There she goes. There we go. Strange how it doesn't want to come out the top right there. There's a lot of crud stuck into that. We'll have to get in there and clean right up inside of there. Try and get some degreaser. Remove some of the debris that's stuck in there because it is definitely caught up in that guy, but I don't want to damage any of the finish. We're going to leave that alone for the time being because that's not the most important part in this right now. Alright, so next we're going to get in to this guy right here. This is going to be excuse me, the bolt stop screw. Not wanting to move either. Tell you what, I'm going to go through and I'm going to put some more of this coil to set this up over here. And we'll let that sit for a minute.
20 minutes later.
Alright, it's been about another 20 minutes. I know you guys can't really see it. I'm just going to make sure they turn first. It does not want to move. Alright, so because of that, I'm going to apply some heat. Let's see if we can loosen her up at all. Alright, guess we're gonna have to keep waiting. Alright guys, rifle's still a little bit warm from the heat gun, but I've been letting it sit for another good little bit. We'll see if we get this to move. Nah. See what patience, heat, and oil can do for you. Ooh, that's still hot. That's still really hot. Huh? Alright, so I moved it over, so now when you pull this back, bolt will come out, and this bolt should, there you go, drop out to the left, right there. See, so there's your bolt. So there you have your firing pin, all sorts of fun goodness, and it is somewhat dirty. We're gonna clean that guy up later. Now we're going to bring this back over to the vise, set it down right in here. And we're going to work on getting the trigger return spring screw out. And this guy is also being a little tough. Alright, I had to change out my screw head real quick. Oh, there she goes. Trigger return spring also quite dirty. We'll clean her up too. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is remove the trigger by removing this pin right here. It's better to have a block. If you don't have a block, roll of tape works excellent. So we'll get that right there, create kind of a flat surface. Drive that pin through. And just like that. You take your trigger and slide it out through the bottom. And there you go. Alright, from here, you want to turn the gun around. We're going to be removing this lever screw. That one was sexy. See how quick and easy that just turned? daddy leg. You should be able just to slide that right off. Giving me a little bit of problem here. Oh, just kidding. That's why. Think smarter, not harder, Chris. This is a bushing that we need to take out. We should. It's not really giving me a lip. So you may have to go in here. And give it a little bit of a motivation there to move. She's still kind of stiff. So we'll give her a little bit more motivation now. Making kind of harder movement. You don't want to mar it up or damage it, so grab a brass punch. They're kind of throwaways for me. I mean, they're a little spinny. Probably shouldn't be too throwaway, but I make them throwaway. The side of the lever. Now that that's gone, we should be able to move this guy right on out. There we go. We should be able to. There you go. It's going to seem scary because it's going to look like this guy isn't going to be able to come out. You see that? You kind of have to put it up and wiggle her around a little bit to get her out. And right here, this is the sear. We're going to remove that guy by undoing this screw. Sometimes this will move on you while you're doing it. If you could get it moved just a tiny bit, you could typically get another type of little screwdriver to hold that steady while you're moving. This guy's feeling a little cruddy. Let me get some PB blaster on that guy. Kind of let it sit and settle because it is fighting me a little bit and I don't want to booger up that screw. I don't know if I said PB blaster or Croil, but I'm using Croil. Ooh! Got a little too excited there, I apologize.
A little longer than a few minutes later.
Alright, this has been sitting there for a good minute. Let's see if she's gonna... God, it keeps wanting to jump out and walk away. Let's see if it's just turning on that other side. No. Man, she is fighting. You are out of the threads though, so I'm gonna try and punch her out. the rest of the way here. There we go. We got movement. We got movement. That's what Daddy likes. There's your sear. And the screw for. Alright, so that's a good, if you're ever wanting just to clean the firearm, this is a good point to stop. You clean up all these parts that you have out. Clean out your barrel, that kind of good stuff. Inside here, this is a Rotary magazine, which is actually really cool. If you look, let me try and zoom into it right here. Right there, see how it says 0 in that little brass bit right there? So that's the number of rounds you have in the magazine. Like I said, it's a Rotary magazine, so it'll sit there, it'll sit and spin. It'll sit and spin as you load it up. These guys are a little finicky. If you take them out and you don't know what you're doing, it's really kind of difficult to get put back together. Alright, here's a part that I guess seems to scare a lot of people. We're going to remove the magazine. And I'm eventually going to disassemble the magazine and clean it up. First thing you're going to want to do, you see this guy right here. It's really easy. See how that pops out? You kind of slide it back. And if you look right down there, that will ride on the back of the Rotary magazine. So you push that back to where it slips off. And generally you could just pull her right on out. Sometimes, I guess it's fighting me a little bit. Yep, pull her right on out. Next, we're going to unscrew this guy right here. And it'll look like a pin on the other side. Don't try and punch that pin out. It's attached to this screw. It's a part of it. I'll show you here. Not getting movement. This rifle is a fighter. It does not want to get taken apart. Just a tad bit. Alright, I'll let that sit for a minute.
One eternity later.
Alright, we're back. There she goes. Coil is just amazing, I'm telling you. Why does this thing want to keep walking on me? Another tip that was taught to me. So if you get to a point where you don't have to use a screwdriver and you can use your fingers or your hand, do that. So it's very easy to have these things jump, fly off, scratch the surface. Or if you're clumsy like me, you just poke the screwdriver and have it fly across the room. There you go. Now this guy should just be able to slide on out. Yep, there we go. Oh yeah, we got some brass corrosion on that guy. So this is the Rotary mag. And inside here, you'll have a spring with a little notch. It comes up and it lines up with another notch back here, and that's what creates the tension as you sit there and load, you know. I'll show you right there. See how that spins? Bam! But we'll take this apart here in a second. I'm going to set that guy aside. He is not looking too pretty. And that's pretty much all you really need to do. You take these out and you'll get this little guy, excuse me, right here out. Other than that, the only other thing, oh yeah, I forgot to show you guys too. I jumped ahead. Where I pushed the Rotary magazine out of, I'll just put this back in here and I'll show you. Yay, fun. Okay, bam. So, I skipped a step for you. You got a forend on this firearm. Most of them will have just like a little takedown pin or screw right here. This guy's fancy. It's got a notch. But you just plop that up, take that out, set that aside, and then you'll be able to look right there and see where the magazine comes out. Alright, we'll get to this guy here in a second. Another thing that we do is take off the barrel, which I might just do just for the sake of showing it. Alright, so when you get your forend off, if you look at the bottom of the barrel here, it says off with a really pretty arrow pointing that direction. That means you're supposed to twist the barrel that way to get it off, but this one's a little stuck, so I'm going to make it easier on myself. And actually gotten her tightened down, but you just, there you go. She just slide right out. Now, you shouldn't even have to get to a point where you have to use a vise to do this. But this gun is just fighting me every step of the way. Alright, so we're going to start on the magazine disassembly here. The threads in these guys go the opposite way. So, seems counterintuitive, but you're going to want to go into the motion of tightening it to loosen it. So, I've seen multiple different fasteners on these sides, hexes. You might have to get a tip like this guy, but smaller. This one's too big. But in my circumstance, I could just use a flat head. You're going to get that in there. Oh, it's not wanting to budge. Once again, it's fighting me, guys. So, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get some coil. That was a lot. Alright, so that coil's been sitting there for a little bit. I'm having a hard time gripping this side because of all the oil in my hands. So I do have it in my vise with some plastic jaws on there so it doesn't mar it up. And we're going to give this another attempt here. And it's just turning in the vise. Man, they really don't want to move. Alright, we're going to put some heat on it, boys and girls. Or whoever's watching. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see how that fires. Hey guys, so I didn't realize that my camera had died. I did get this apart, as you can see. Kind of just show you how this goes together here. What it'll look like. So you got this spring, and you have these on each end. There's a hole. See that little tiny hole there? The spring will go through it like that and come up and through. So it sticks out the top right there. And then there's another hole in this guy, right on the inside of this part down in there. Good tip, it follows this fin right here. So if you are having a hard time getting it back in, you essentially just stick that in there and roll her around until you find There you go, that hole. You'll know when you're in it because it'll just drop right in. Stick it in that hole. Bam, see, and then you can see it rotates it right there, as it should. That guy back through. Put this on. Yep, so that's the assembly and disassembly of what's called the carrier. I kept calling it the Rotary magazine, which it's a part of the Rotary magazine system that's in here. It goes down to that guy, rotates all the cartridges into this section right here. Alright, so from this point it's just general maintenance and cleaning. I'm gonna go through and polish this guy up, get all the corrosion off of it, make it look pretty, especially with that little brass spot that shines through on this. Gonna clean up all the gunk that's inside this guy. I'm gonna throw some of the pieces in my ultrasonic cleaner, make sure I really get in there and get a bunch of that gunk off, and then we'll go into reassembly. Alright, so to start the cleaning on this guy, you're gonna want to get some really fine grade steel wool. Don't need a whole lot. And you just run through. See, oh, look at that shine already. It's very tedious. And it doesn't happen in an instant. You gotta take your time and go through, make sure you're hitting each spot as you need. So I'm gonna get through this and I'll show you some before and after pictures when it's done. Alright guys, check this out. I went through, polished it up. So check this out. So here's what it looked like before, or at least the best pictures that I could have of it. You could see some of that greenish bluish oxidation happening there on the brass. Take it through with some really fine grain wool, or steel wool. Just look at how shiny that gets. Now there's a couple of blemishes that are still there. That's just little nicks, you know, and just damage to the brass that we really can't do anything about. But she came out pretty. And then the next thing to do is get some, you know, gun graded oil and rub it all over this as a protective coating. It will further stop the erosion and corrosion of the piece. Well, I think she looks pretty good. So that said, now let's get everything set up for the ultrasonic cleaner. Alright guys, so the ultrasonic cleaner, I usually do a 1 to 4 mix of some simple green concentrate. Trust me, it works fantastic. And water. Heat it up, get it in the cleaner or in the machine. Then you want to do what's called a pre-soak. I use this M Pro 7. I've never had an issue with it. Shooter lube's also really good. I have some of their lubrication right here actually. Love this stuff. Their gun cleaner is also really good, but this is what I have available to me right now. What you're gonna want to do is go through and hit all your parts with a little spray. That. Let it sit and soak for a good 5 minutes. Now if you have something like the stuff in a pressurized can, it'll dry up real quick. Give it a little scrub down before you throw it into the ultrasonic cleaner and you'll probably be good to go. I just like letting the stuff soak. Alright guys, it's been a good minute. I run this on a max cycle, max heat, so this gets to about 175 degrees Fahrenheit. I run it for about 30 minutes at a time. Sometimes I gotta double it up, have these things in here for about an hour, but I mean these are dirty, but they're not terrible, so I'll probably throw them into a half-hour cycle. With these though, I'm not gonna throw everything in at the same time. They'll run up against each other, they'll start ruining the finishing, so I'm gonna start off with the big bad boy right here. What you're gonna do, take out the basket, Set her into the basket. Let that submerge. Are you guys ready to hear the most beautiful sound in the world? Alright guys, so we just finished that first cycle on the receiver. So we're going to lift this up and out. And fairly quickly, we're going to get our air compressor. We're going to get all the moisture out of this guy. 'Cause one thing we don't want to do is have moisture left inside of the firearm. Alright, so it is the next day. I had to take care of another firearm emergency with another customer and kind of put a stop to this for a second, but we're back. So we're going to start reassembly. I went through and detailed cleaned everything else. So we're going to start by putting the carrier back together. Make sure that's lined up in the hole. Okay. Oh, I need to turn my ringer off. Remember, this is the opposite direction you'd think for threading. This is not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Now we're at the point where we're going to have to grab that, hold that tight to tighten that bolt down all the way. So let me get that set up real quick so I can make that easier for myself. Alright, so now we're going to put the bolt back together. Take your firing pin, make sure that this kind of flattened area right here is face up. Going into there, it's going to match into this little groove right here. Bam. And then you get your fastener. Drop her down in there. Now you never want to over tighten these guys. Hand tighten and just move it a tiny bit past that. Bam. Alright, so now I'm going to get the carrier back into the receiver here. This guy goes into this guy, and there's going to be a little, let me adjust the light. That hole right there is going to be where this part of the spring goes. Alright, so I kind of did it off camera. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt, and I had to use both my hands and not really care too much about how the camera was set up. But I got the carrier back in. As you can see, you know, rotates one. I don't have the bolts to make it happen. Tells you how much you have right there. It's a cool little design. Next, we're going to have to get this guy in. This is the automatic cutoff. I have this set up in a vise only because I'm trying to set this up working with only one hand was proven to be rather difficult. One thing I've learned when it comes to working with firearms, taking it apart is super easy. Putting it back together is always where the real struggle comes in. There we go. Alright, now we're going to be putting in the sear. Alright, we're going to try this one again. This is the actual footage we're going to use for this part. Alright, so make sure you get that guy back in. And here we go. There we are. Shazam. On to the next. Alright, now we're going to put the lever back in. That one was a little bit easier to put back in. Okay, so if you look right there, there's that notch that the bushing needs to line up with that guy right there. So we're going to push that in. If she'll go, not line her up right. Like I said, sometimes don't be afraid to give her a little love tap. There we go. Line that up. Sorry, I know my hat's probably getting in the way. There we go. Okay. Cool. Next we'll put in the trigger. Come up through the bottom. Make sure it engages with that sear. Sorry, let me zoom this out so we can see it a little bit better. So we're gonna take the trigger, put it up through the bottom, make sure it engages with that notch right there in the sear, and we're going to line up the hole to put the pin through right there. Brass side, no, it won't mar the steel. Now that trigger's in. Cool. safety still works. Safety's right here, by the way. Cool. All the engagement with that looks good. All right. Okay, so we got the lever attached, sear, trigger, pins in. Next we'll get the bolt back in. So this groove right here is going to line up this knob on the lever. So retract the lever all the way back and get this, set it in. You might have to play with it just a tad bit. There we go. Nope, not quite. There we go. So this is gonna, bottom of this bolt is gonna carry into a groove right here. Like I said, that knob's gonna catch that groove, and that's what makes it go forward and back and all that kind of good stuff. See? Fun stuff. Alright, now I'm gonna get this guy up on a vise. And we get the rest of the way, put it back together. Remember, when working with a vise, you don't need to squeeze terribly hard on that thing either. You don't want to bend the receiver, just enough to hold it in place for you. There we go. Get right in on the part we're going to be working with here. Oh, righty, tighty, whitey. This guy. This guy. So, I did forget a step. Not detrimental, but it definitely needs to go in there or you're going to have a bad time. This is why my carrier kept slipping out. This is supposed to go right into that hole right there. You see, right here's where that other side of the pin comes out, and it holds the carrier together from slipping out on you. Guess who didn't do that and kept having the carrier slip out on them while they're trying to put the rest of the firearm back together? This guy did. So we're going to get that back in place. Scoozy. Scoozy, scoozy, scoozy. I need my light adjustment here. Just wanting to fight a little bit, so we'll love tap it until we get down to where we need to start threading her in. Alright, looking good, looking good. Now we'll go back to the vise and finish her up real quick. Alright. Now we're gonna put back on the trigger spring. Let me get this magnetized real quick. These things are pretty nifty if you ever want to make your life a little bit easier. You rub your screwdriver through the middle like that and it magnetizes the screwdriver. That way you don't have to fight it too much. There we go. The cool thing too, if you don't want it to be magnetic anymore, let me show you an example. So I got that guy magnetized. You just sit there and bam, look at that. No longer magnetic. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. I'm sure a lot of you have seen that, but in case you haven't, it's pretty cool. And then the breech bolt stop going right back on there. I dropped the bolt down in. I'm now going to attach the stock. All right. Get some blood off my hands. Beautiful barrel. This is going to go straight in like this. Twist over. Barrel's attached. Cool. And then the fore end. Slide that beautiful thing right inside there. Bam. Everything looks good. Alright, I'm going to do a quick functions check here. Alright, chamber's good. Head spacing looks great. I'm not going to pull the trigger. Extraction and ejection looks good. I'll take the safety off. Perfect. Alright, so that's it for this one. Just a few things real quick. Some things I did off camera. Because I'm not making necessarily a gunsmithing video, I'm just making an assembly and disassembly video. I did check the firing pin protrusion. That checked out the headspace on the firearm, and that checked out. It really is an amazing firearm. The Savage model 1899, chambered in 250 Savage. It was a pleasure to work on. Keep following me, like my stuff. I'm going to keep trying to put up more videos to all 3 of my viewers right now. Have a good one, guys.